a song for you.
You're listening to Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast. I will do one episode for each song the band recorded in the studio. However, this is a fan podcast and not band endorsed. It's more of a tribute to their long history, well beyond just the hits, and my way of giving something back to a band that has given so much to me. Let's dig in! Hello and welcome to another episode of Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and you may remember me from shows such as the Haskin Cast Podcast or Uriah Heep the Magician's Podcast. Either way, I'm here doing a show on Deep Purple. I'm so glad you're here to join me, even though I don't know that you're joining me when you listen. How would I know that? That would be really weird if I did. We're into Deep Purple and Rock, Season 5. Going through the transition with the band as they've gone from, psychedelic rock to an album of classical. It was a combination of rock and now just a straight hard rock album. Yesterday, we covered 4 versions of Speed King. I'm sorry to say that today I only have one version of Bloodsucker for you. Yes, there is a second version of this song. The band remade it on the Abandon album, but we'll get to that when we get to Abandon. So for today, we're talking about the version that was recorded for the In Rock album and the liner notes of the album, which are as small and basic as you can get for liner notes, other than just saying, yeah, we recorded it. Very elusive. It just says, Bloodsucker, a particularly nasty sort of fellow. There are lots of us. Yes. Okay. I would have thought... And I'm not convinced that this song isn't about management in general, like rock band management or their management in particular. But the liner notes, of course, are not going to say that in the album, if that is the case, because they're not going to want to piss off the management directly. They're going to make them figure it out or do it metaphorically, that sort of thing. So I think that's what the song's about. This is a really cool track, guys. One of my favorites as a drummer. This is such a fun song to play, especially this version. I would say a little bit more than the Abandoned version because the pace is a little more, I would say exuberant on this one. When we get to like Perfect Strangers going forward, he's a little more reserved in spots. But I think that this version is just, it's excitement, it's fire. There's some killer solos back and forth between Richie and John. A great structure. We're going to get into the song. Here it is, Bloodsucker. Boy, this is just all business. Gets right into it from the beginning, kind of like the American version of Speed King, without that dramatic intro, just like snare, boom, we're in it. I really like the rhythm to this song. Going along with what Richie and Roger are playing here together. I can't tell what John's playing in these headphones yet, but we're just getting that kind of like a half gallop. Dun, da, da, dun, da, 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 da. I really like that because you feel the gallop when the gallop isn't there. So when they go to the longer, more sustained notes, you're still feeling that same rhythm. And of course, you got Ian Pace, but he's not playing the gallop exactly. He's playing a beat, which complements it, but doesn't duplicate it. So it's interesting that, when you get into the longer notes, you still feel that same da-da-da-da kind of rhythm.
But you know I got it there. Try to know that you didn't want to know.
While we do have a delay on the vocal, we don't have so much reverb like we did on Speed King. So the vocal actually sits very nicely in the mix, much better, I think, than it did on Speed King. And it was mainly, I think, due to that reverb. Really cool, intricate patterns in the transition there. We don't really have a chorus. We have kind of a pre-chorus and then an instrumental passage that returns us back to the verse. I love the intricacy of it, and it's played so flawlessly. Everybody is so tight and together on this album, and this is how they would be live. If this wasn't, studio trickery, they were just that tight.
Take a hold now if you can. Take a lesson from a hard-loving man. I'm a long way from where I wanna go. Guess I'm still wild, I really love you so. How's about another sip of all the wine you got? Take a tip from me and give it here up in your life. I'm not a whining, I'm a putting on a show.
Now, we hear Ian talk about taking a lesson from a hard-loving man. Hard-loving man is the last song on the proper album, and I wondered, it could really go either way. They could have written hard-loving man first, or had the sketch or that title, and then thrown that lyric in this song, or they could have heard the lyric back in this song and said, hey, you know what? That's a good song title for this other piece we're working on. I don't know how it went, but it's always neat kind of when you get those little connections within the album structure. I really love these little connection parts, like this just very last segment here, where we, just everybody's like, okay, you're going to do your solo, then we're going to have okay, we're all back together now. Let's go back into the next verse. And we're getting 3 verses in a row. Again, there's no real chorus to the song. So the best you have is the verse, a pre-chorus, and then the instrumental passage. But the playing is fantastic on it. You can't help but to just, if you like rock music or you like anything that's just well performed, how can you not like this?
Really got me, but I gotta move. Before I know I'm here with spreading news. Maybe in a while when I move around, I can find a way to bring you back and bring it down. Really got a lot of loving that I wanna give, baby. I'm a missing, but you know I gotta live. Tried another, but you didn't wanna know.
So as we head into the beginning of the ride of solo sections, there's a little sound in there, and I think it's coming from the guitar. It's I don't know what it is. I've always wondered it. You hear it twice, and I've always wondered if that's if it couldn't have been a short in the chord, because it really doesn't sound like that. I don't know if that's Richie changing pickups or what that sound is, but I've always thought it was kind of just a neat little thing, and sometimes it could be like a happy accident that just picked up on tape well, and it just adds a little bit of something to the song that just wouldn't be there normally, because you wouldn't go out of your way to put a sound like that in a song unless you were doing, like sound design for a film or something like that. But yeah, there's something I always thought was really cool about that, and I have no idea what it was. If you guys know, please let me know. So as we get through the first, what really kind of feels just like a conversation, not so much a call and response, but because I don't feel there's, a question or an uptick at the end of Richie's solos that lead it to feel like it's a question or a call. I just feel like it's a nice conversation between the two, and then you have your other party guests that are talking in the background. It's really just natural and very easy to focus on the solo playing. So I would suggest maybe after each solo section is done, go back and rewind it and listen again, but this time listen to what Ian Paice and Roger Glover are playing. They're both, Ian Paice is keeping up the groove. He's got some really nice accents that he's playing over these or underneath these solos. And then Roger's bass notes are really interesting, very creative choices. Again, it would be so easy to just play the root notes, but it's very rare that you actually hear Roger doing that. What I love is that the intensity and the insanity of the solos just gets bigger as we go through each one. I love that they're not just speeding through like some kind of hard rock showing off type solo. I really feel like they're more heartfelt and melodic. I've always enjoyed the growing intensity, but without the flashiness. They don't feel flashy to me. That solo from John, I suppose you could say it's kind of flashy, but it really doesn't feel that way to me at all. Not that there's any bias. I love this last bit because it feels like what I like to call a comeback part, where you're kind of like, you've worn yourself out, but you've somehow regathered your strength and your resolve, and you're ready to take on the rest of the challenge. And we'll get this again in I think it's Who Do We Think We Are? There's a part on that album which was like the first one. I'm like, oh wow, okay, this feels like a renewed strength in the middle of the song. I can't think of which one it is off the top of my head, but when we get there, we'll get there and I'll point it out, of course. But yeah, I really love that. And that just kind of gives us the strength to take it to the next level, because buckle up. Yeah, this is one of those songs I really wish I could follow to the conclusion of wherever they stopped playing. Unfortunately, Roger didn't give that to us in the remix on the 25th anniversary, but you know what? That's okay, because we do get a little bit of an extended ending beyond what we got on the original album, and it just sounds killer. Also, I noticed that when they turn on that effect for the final verse, again, Ian's voice kind of goes a little bit more into the background. It might have been a little overkill if it was at the same volume as the rest of the song, because there's a lot going on dynamically. Could have, kind of drowned out some of the music a little bit. So, you have to really balance the overall and not just the vocal, even if the vocal is kind of expected to be the main focus. And I love that. I love Ian just kind of going off a little bit with that delay and reverb effect on him. I've always just really enjoyed that. And the first verse just feels so different than when he sang it at the beginning of the song, where he sings it here in the repeat. Overall, though, I've always loved the song. I was so excited when they re-recorded it for Abandon. Not going to share my feelings on that until we get to it, which will be a while. But we will get there, because of course we will. But this version, this is one of those songs that I would listen to, and then before I got to the next track, I'd be like, I want to hear that again. It's just so good. Not really ready to give it up. It's under 4.25, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like it goes really fast. And I think just those solos being so exciting and the back and forth of all that really just kind of makes it fly by, to be honest. And plus the song's got great energy. You get caught up in that rhythm, and it can just take you kind of out of time a little bit. And that, to me, is one of the signs of a very well written song. If it distorts time, then it's engaged you in a way that has just made you disconnect from the world and focus on the music. And this song does it to me every single time. And I absolutely love and appreciate that. So that is today's episode, guys. Thank you so much. Tomorrow is the Haskencast podcast on Wednesday, and then we'll be back Thursday for our third track. I do suspect that episode might be a little bit long because we are talking about the iconic Child in Time. And if you're not aware, this song was one of the songs that they played when the Berlin Wall was being torn down. And I found that very interesting and very cool. I mean, you know, I've had my music on birthing playlists, which is pretty awesome to say, I want to bring my child into the world and I want your music to be part of that experience. That, I mean, that's a pretty damn huge compliment, I will say. Beethoven is being played out in space. That's a pretty big, he was the first composer to make it off of the planet, as far as I know. But there is a satellite or something or other that's got his music playing on it. I think it's the Ninth Symphony. So that should any other life come into contact with it, they want that to be part of their impression of Earth, which I thought, yeah, you know what? You picked a good one. You definitely picked a good one. And so, you know, there's certain things that are iconic. And while it took more than, 15 minutes to tear down the Berlin Wall, Child in Time was one of the songs that was played during that incredibly epic, camaraderie event, I will say, where divided nations came together. And to have been part of that, I mean, obviously the band didn't intend that when they wrote the song, and certainly had nothing to do with the choice of it being played at that wall tearing down. But to have been selected for that, especially having not thrown their hat into the ring and said, hey, why don't you guys play us? That's a pretty damn big compliment. So we're going to get into all that on Thursday. For now, have a great week, guys. Check out Haskencast podcast tomorrow, and then we'll be back. We'll see you guys. Cheers. Thanks for listening to Deep Purple Smoke on the Podcast, a tour of the entire Deep Purple studio recordings. Please remember to give the show a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. Leave a comment and tell your friends. I also have a Patreon set up if you'd like to support the show. You can also write to me at smokeonthepodcast@gmail.com. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and thanks for listening.